Are you looking for information on flying internationally with your dog in cargo? Is your dog too big to fit under a plane seat? Then this video is for you.
Welcome to Track Us Down. If you're just finding us, I'm Monique.
And I'm Doug. Our channel is all about downshifting to an early retirement, living a healthy lifestyle, and enjoying all the freedom that comes with it.
After over 25 years of working hard and raising our family, we retired from our careers, we sold everything, and we began our second half of life. We begin here on the beautiful island of Madeira.
Thank you so much for joining us. If you like our videos and you would like to see more, please leave a comment down below and please consider subscribing to our channel. It really helps our channel grow.
Today's video is all about traveling internationally with your dog in cargo. Many people who decide to retire abroad have pets, and we did as well. And leaving them behind is not something that anybody wants to do. So a lot of research goes into traveling with a pet, especially in cargo. And today we wanted to share with you the beginning of a series. So we are gonna do 2 videos. In this video, we're gonna walk you through 1, everything you need to consider before really deciding to do this, right to booking a plane ticket. And 2, if your dog is not crate trained, what you need to know about crate training and how to purchase the right crate to travel internationally. In the next video, we'll be talking about what is a pet passport and how to create one for your dog, as well as travel prep for you and your dog, the travel day itself, and what happens when you arrive in Europe.
So there is a lot involved, and I have to give credit to Monique. When we were preparing for our second half of life, retiring early and moving, that was her job. She took it upon herself to do all the research necessary to move our larger dog overseas in an airplane, and she did a great job and everything went smoothly, but there was a lot to research and a lot of steps to follow. So you can do it as well.
So let's begin. We are sharing 6 ideas to consider before you even decide to do this, as well as 1 thing that needs to be done. This needs to be considered and done 3 to 4 months before you plan on moving.
Number 1, is this a move or is it just a trip? It makes a big difference. There's potentially a lot of cost involved. There's potentially some stress involved for not only your animal, but also for each other, and just the bureaucracy as well. It's a lot to take on, so you have to decide whether it's a trip or an actual move. In our opinion, if this wasn't a move, it was just a trip, whether it's 2 weeks or a month, maybe even 2 months, we would not have taken on all these steps to move our dog in cargo, on a plane, over multiple flights to the other side of the world. It would just be too stressful, not only on each other, but on the dog as well. And let's face it, if you're only going for 2 weeks or a month, you're probably gonna have a much better time anyways without having a pet to look after with you. So you wanna decide if this is worth it in the long term.
Number 2. Do you have the time, and are you willing to put in the time to do the research required before you do this? 3 to 4 months before, you need to be looking into departing from your country, what that involves, the health of your pet. You need to also be looking at the requirements of the country that you are going to. And it does require quite a bit of research time. So do you have the time?
Number 3, the age and health of your dog. A good 3 to 4 months out, you definitely have to have a good idea about whether your dog is healthy or not to travel. Before you go, 10 days before you go, you have to have a vet sign off on the health of your dog. But generally, you know your dog best, so 3 to 4 months ahead, you have to look and see whether there's some illnesses, some injuries that you think might prevent your dog from traveling in 3 to 4 months. As well, the age of your dog. If you have an older dog who's 12, 15 years old and they're not really moving around too well, is it fair to put them through the stress of being in a crate for long hours on a flight, getting in and off a flight with people that they don't know? If your dog is young, 2 years old, 3 years old, anywhere up to 10 years old, chances are he or she is in good shape and it's no problem to fly. But once they get a bit older and they could have arthritis, maybe they even have cancer, maybe they have other issues, it's just probably not advisable to fly with your dog. So maybe 3 to 4 months, 6 months ahead, just like yourself, you might want to put your dog on an exercise routine, taking them on longer walks, up some hills, just getting them in better shape, cutting their food out a bit and putting them on a diet. They're really no different than people in that sense. You want a dog that's in good shape so that they're able to fly internationally.
Number 4, consider alternatives. Before you decide to do an international flight with a dog in cargo, you need to think about, are there other ways to get to your destination other than an airplane? That may be by car if you're capable of driving. The ocean kind of is a problem about that. But it may be a combination with a train. There's also the Cunard ship, the Queen Mary 2, that takes dogs across the ocean, transatlantic, from New York to England and New York to Germany.
In style.
In style. Costly, but in style. That is an alternative. There are also charter flights that are organized where you can be on the airplane with your dog that should be in cargo, but the dog would be seated next to you on the airplane. Again, those are quite costly, but they are available, and they all should be up for consideration before you decide to fly commercially. Here I just want to give a little piece of side advice. 3 to 4 months out, you're considering the things that we're talking about here. But there is something that could happen to you that happened to me when I was doing the research. You can get in a deep dive rabbit hole that will really stunt the progress. One deep dive is looking at all the negative things online when you do research on Google about traveling with a pet in cargo. And there are some terrible stories. There's people repeating stories that didn't happen to them but happened to someone they know. There's a lot of people who've written things about different airlines and different processes that were really negative. And as you begin to look at those, you can start feeling really anxious about taking this on. So I would not recommend doing that deep dive. The other deep dive that's more on a positive note is you can start taking a look online of people who do this all the time. So they have a big dog and they travel internationally all the time. The dog has their own passport and the dog's been on, 20, 30 flights and they collect air miles. And that's all great, but those people have no anxiety about traveling with the dog. They make it sound so easy and they didn't really address my fears of traveling with the dog. So 2 deep dives that I would just caution you not to get too deep into, because they will really stunt the progress that you're making on your planning your international travel with your dog.
Number 5, is your particular dog allowed to fly? There are some breeds that are not even allowed in the country that you're flying to, and it varies so much from country to country. We're not going to get into which country bans which breeds. You have to do that research and see the country that you're going to if they accept your particular breed. But also, and I think more relevant, is your particular breed allowed to fly for health reasons? In general, short-nosed dogs are not allowed to fly for our purposes underneath in cargo, and that's because of the health implications with regard to their breathing. There's some issues, I guess, that the experts have done their work, and they have a list of several types of short-nosed dogs that are not allowed to fly at all in cargo. So you have to make sure for your particular dog if it's allowed to fly at all.
Number 6, check the weather. When you are flying across the ocean, transatlantic, internationally, the weather matters. It matters at your point of departure and it matters at your destination. You need to know what the weather is at both those points. A lot of airlines will not fly when it's super cold or when it's super hot. So you're really looking at a window in the spring and a window in the fall when the temperature is adequate for pet travel. As well, during the pandemic, there were many airlines that for one reason or another were not carrying dogs in cargo at all. So that's something to consider as well, that the airlines may or may not be carrying dogs at the time that you are thinking of traveling. So our advice in this area is to really check the weather and know when it is an appropriate time for your dog to travel. It can't be too hot and it can't be too cold. It has to be sort of that middle temperature. The dog will be sitting in a crate on the tarmac and then loaded up and unloaded, and both those weathers need to be favorable. You can look on your airline's webpage and they will often list exact temperatures that it has to be. So be prepared for that.
And I guess just further to what you were saying, you have to be aware of what's going on in the world at the time, whether it's a pandemic or something else. You know, there's always something going on in the world. You have to make sure that the airlines are accepting pets at that particular time based on what's going on in the world.
Here is a recap of 6 things to consider before you book a ticket internationally for your dog. Number 1, is this a trip or a move? Number 2, do you have the time and are you willing to do the prep work and research before doing this? Number 3, the health and age of your dog. Number 4, consider the alternatives. Number 5, can your dog fly? Number 6, check the weather.
So now it's time to actually book your flight. How exciting. There are a couple steps involved with that, important things to consider. First of all, you want to make sure that you're flying as direct as possible. If you're coming from somewhere like we did where there's a few connecting flights, you have to book those and consider the time in between. You don't want to be flying more than 1 flight per day or within so many hours. It's too hard on your dog and it's too hard on you unloading and loading and going through that whole process at the airport. So if you're going to fly 1 segment, unload, have an overnight, at least 1 overnight if it's a short flight, and then when you fly your long haul flight, like we did from North America over to Europe, when we arrived in Lisbon, we had 2 days to reacclimate, make sure our dog was okay, and just get him settled in before we did our last flight from Lisbon to Madeira.
So that's really important not only for you traveling with the dog, but for the dog as well. And in our next video, we will be talking about that travel day, and those breaks will become very important for the health and well-being of your pet.
And of course, when it comes time to book your flights, there's a process involved with that as well. We booked our flights over to Europe in May for our flights to actually occur in October. You have to make sure that there's actually room in cargo for your dog. They only have so many spots allocated for pets, so you'll have to phone, talk to the particular airline that you're using, and make sure that they have room, first of all, for your dog. Then you go back, you book your flight, and then you call back to the dog portion. You can find the number for that particular airline that you're using on their website, and you phone back and you talk to the dog booking portion. You tell them that you have a flight booked for yourselves, you give them the date, and then they will book your dog in. This is a longer process. I think when I booked our actual dog part, because I don't think it's a highly staffed segment of the airlines, I phoned at about 7 or 8 in the morning and I was on hold, I think, all day. I went about my business throughout the day. I had the day set aside for that, and whether I was inside doing things or outside walking around, I had the phone with me, and I think about 3 or 4 in the afternoon, I finally had somebody answer. Your experience might be different. You might get a hold of somebody a lot quicker.
You might be lucky.
You might be lucky, but for us, it took all day and we were prepared for that. But when I phoned back, I gave them the flights that we had booked, the date of, and they confirmed yes, there was space available, and we booked our dog. There is a cost for your dog. They have their own ticket. It's called Pet in Cargo, and they'll give you a confirmation number for your Pet in Cargo. So you'll have not only your flight confirmation, but you'll have a Pet in Cargo confirmation, and you need that for each segment of your flight and each airline if you're changing airlines.
This goes back to what we talked about in the things to consider portion of this video. It's really important to have the time to set aside to go through these things methodically, and there is going to be a long wait time most probably, so you need to be ready for that. Part 2 of this video is going to take you from purchasing a crate for travel for your dog right through to an easy crate training schedule.
Purchasing a crate. Probably one of the most important first steps you're gonna do for your dog. And we're not even talking about getting him trained for that crate if your dog isn't crate trained already. If your dog is already crate trained, that's great. However, you have to make sure that your crate is appropriate and approved for travel. It has to be IATA approved, IATA approved, and there are a few requirements that have to be followed in order for them to let your dog on board in that particular crate. It has to have a metal door and hardware, removable wheels, food and water dishes, fully ventilated. It has to be 3 to 4 inches bigger than your pet, and there has to be labeling such as live animal, this way up, and definitely has to have spots for zip ties. And just to further on a couple of those points, even though you're using metal hardware for that crate and it's locked down tight, there's plastic clips and metal hardware, everywhere that we flew, they insisted that it still be zip tied closed, both the front door and all the little slots all the way around. So it is secure. And the size of it, you will find that you are buying a much bigger crate than you thought. It actually has to be, when they say 3 to 4 inches bigger than your dog has to be able to stand up and turn around and move around inside that crate. Vizslas, for our breed, they have long legs, they're tall dogs, so we had, I think, a double XL crate, or an XL. It's pretty big, we thought, for the size of our dog, but it has to have room for him to stand up and move around. So zip ties, metal hardware, and bigger than you think. Like most consumers in North America, probably around the world, we went with Amazon. They have a good selection of IATA approved crates. We went with a company called Sport Pet that covered all the requirements. It's a really good build, it was a good price, and we had it delivered months ahead of our flight time, so we had plenty of time to get our dog accustomed to his crate and to make sure that it had all the proper requirements. We're gonna link down below in Amazon a few IATA approved crates, not just the Sport Pet one that we use, but a couple others as well.
Just a reminder that this crate purchase does need to happen 3 to 4 months before you decide you're going to travel, just so that you have the time to assemble it and get it all ready, as well as train your dog to be happy in there. In this section, I'm going to talk about crate training. I am not a dog expert by any means, but I did do a lot of research looking at some of the experts like Cesar Millan and other dog experts online and gathered information that made sense for our situation. If your dog is already crate trained, then you are so lucky because your dog already feels comfortable in a crate. Our dog was a spoiled Vizsla and slept in our bed and has never been in a crate. So the prospect of putting him in a crate for an 8-hour flight, maybe even longer, was very, very daunting. So 3 to 4 months out, we needed to start thinking about how to get him used to being in a crate for a long period of time. So here are the steps that I gathered together that we use to successfully train our spoiled Vizsla to not only sleep in a crate, but be comfortable in a crate and go to a crate all the time. I used lots of different information from different sources and put together what I call the 6-week plan. So I'm gonna share that with you now, and I would really recommend that you leave 6 weeks at the end for just having the plan in place at home. So a good 3 to 4 months before.
And this worked beautifully.
It worked great. So let's begin. Week 1. The crate arrives in your house. Do not assemble a crate. Just take the base of the crate, put a nice blanket or towel in it, and put it somewhere visible in your home, your kitchen or living room, somewhere that you are and the dog is often. Week 2. Begin the crate training with giving treats to the dog only in the base of the crate. So every time you go to give a treat, no more treats in the kitchen or elsewhere. You're always saying to the dog, go to your crate or crate up, whatever wording you choose, and you give the treat in the crate. That is week 2. Week 3, you're gonna do the same thing you did in week 2 with only giving treats in the crate. However, this time you're gonna put the top on. This is where the dog may hesitate a little bit to go into the crate with the top on. So 2 paws in, give a treat, fully in, give a treat again. Treats only come in the crate from this point on. Week 4, treats in the crate, top on, and slowly shut the door. You're not keeping the door closed for a long time, but while they're chewing on the treat, you close the door gently. When they're done, you open the door, and when they come out, you give them praise. Week 5, treats in the crate, top on, but now you're closing the door and you're giving it just a few seconds before letting the dog out. The dog goes in, you give him a treat, you close the door, the dog eats the treat, turns around, looks at you, you talk to the dog for a bit, and then you open the door. Go ahead and wait 2 or 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, and keep upping the time as the week progresses, that you have that door shut, but you're still talking in a calm, pleasant voice to the dog as they've eaten their treat and finished their treat. Week 6, continue with all treats only in the crate, and this will continue on now as the only place that they get treats. You have the top on and you're closing the door. The last treat given before nighttime now is in the crate, the door closed, calm voice saying good boy, have a good night, and the dog begins to have their first night in the crate sleeping. We would then recommend that the next 6 weeks are just for that exact thing, for sleeping in the crate. All treats remain given in the crate. We used this system for our dog who was very hesitant to go in the crate, and we found that it worked really well. The idea is to every week slowly increase what you're asking of the dog, and so slowly allowing the dog's comfort level to grow in the crate. If you watch videos by experts like Cesar Millan, you'll see that he actually says that dogs sleep much better in a crate at night. They're not worried about what's going on in the house or outside. So you're actually doing something really positive for the dog as well. That's how we tried to think about it. And when it did come time to fly internationally and go in the crate, it was a familiar, cozy environment that he had slept in for weeks already, that he knew treats were coming in there, and it made us more relaxed as well.
This brings us to the end of video 1 of how to travel internationally with your dog in cargo. There's a lot of information provided there. By the time you get through all this, you'll be ready for part 2, or maybe you won't.
So in part 2, we are going to cover what is needed to travel internationally in terms of what is a pet passport and how to create one, what the travel day will look like, the travel prep that has to happen, and what happens when you actually do arrive in Europe.
So if you liked the information that we provided so far, if you enjoy watching our videos, please feel free to subscribe and leave a comment down below. We really appreciate hearing from you, and we really appreciate your subscription. It helps our channel grow and reach other viewers. So as always, check back in and
track us down.